People got locked out of their money, couldn't access their savings, businesses couldn't access liquidity, many businesses shut down, the whole economy crashed again.
We've got Panos Mekras. He's the CEO and founder of Anodos Labs, and with 10 years experience in the blockchain industry, his mission and vision at the moment is to empower people and businesses to manage their finances independently.
When you deposit money into your bank account, you're giving control to your bank, they custody the money for you, and they give you actually an IOU, which means the banks owe you the money. If the bank disappears, then your money is gone.
How you go about trying to educate people around this, and are people becoming more receptive as the technology matures?
The global stats are 60 to 70% of people don't have a grasp of the main financial concepts. People didn't really understood what's happening. If you don't understand how the world works, then you can't understand any technology, or especially.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Behind the Numbers, the podcast that seeks the personalities in the finance and technology industry. So before I jump in and speak to our very special guest today, I'd like to remind you that today's podcast is brought to you by Kinetic Core AI. They're a firm that help technology companies grow their profits within 12 months. So if you're interested in a free growth consultancy, drop the word grow into the DMs and we'll take it from there. Panos, really great to have you. And how's things over in Greece at the moment?
Yeah, Matthew, it's great to be here. Thanks for the invitation. Yeah, here in Greece, the weather is great. The economy not so much, but yeah, we're here to talk about it.
Awesome. Yeah, well, you can't have it all, but yeah, beautiful place. So yeah, had many good times over in Greece and on the island. So yeah, many fond memories for the family. So, but tell us a little bit about yourself, your background. I touched a little bit in the introduction around, where your motivations come from, where your vision has come from. So give us a background about your journey in entrepreneurship and where we are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm from Greece. I was born and raised in Greece. I studied accounting and finance, and I think everything came to be because, I saw the 2008 financial crisis and, 2010, the European crisis, and Greece being basically, I would say, the country that was affected most in the European Union and generally in the whole world in this global financial crisis. And seeing people lose money, lose their homes, businesses shutting down. At the same time, our family business was also affected.
Right.
And I was trying to understand, what went really wrong. And, because my father has always been a businessman his whole life, run through different businesses. So I guess, I took that from him. So I always loved entrepreneurship and creating something of your own and building something for yourself. So I wanted basically to understand the system from within, trying to understand finances, the banking system, and that's what mainly drove me to study finance. And then I would say, my first entrepreneurial endeavor, I would say, started when I was 14, 15 years old. At that time, I was heavily into sports, football, European football, huge fan of Real Madrid. And I started experimenting with YouTube and videos, creating editing, creating some football videos, highlights. So I created my own channel. And then at the same period, I was also created a Facebook page, a fan page for Real Madrid for Greece, which within 3 years it became the number one sports fan page in the country.
Wow. Okay.
And I can say that, this was my first real business because from there I started selling some merch. So I started, for the first 3 years, it was just a hobby, just, trying to share my passion, share updates about the team and the different developments. But then I started realizing, this is something big. Now we have over 100,000 people following this page. So maybe I can do something, I can turn it into something more. So that's how I started experimenting with what I can do, ask the community. And that's how I also learned a lot of things about marketing, engaging with your users or your people. And I started selling some merchandise, started making some money from it. And then, I went to study finance, learn more things, go deeper into, let's say, banking and investments.
Yeah.
And then, 2015, capital controls happened in Greece, and people got locked out of their money, couldn't access their savings, businesses couldn't access liquidity. So again, many businesses shut down, the whole economy crashed again. And out of desperation, it was a meant to be that I found about Bitcoin and blockchain technology. So I decided to dive deep into that, and I said, this is actually the alternative we need generally in the world. That banks have been destroying us, and for all these years, decades.
Mm-hmm.
All this greed and corruption and everything that has been happening with governments and the banking system. It's really time for a change. So that's how I said Bitcoin and crypto in general, this technology for the first time allowed you to be your own bank. So it was the notion that you have a currency that is not issued by any government or any central body, and you can for the first time interact peer-to-peer, one another, like we do with cash basically, but digitally, like being an internet native technology. And I was generally always a big fan of innovation and technologies, and I spent the next years researching, like made my first investments, writing about this technology, got involved and potentially used hundreds of different apps based on blockchain technology. And I started seeing a big shift with self-custody, like people needing and wanting to have full control of their money and data, because data is another thing. We have the big tech companies and all these companies selling your data, or data leaks or hacks, and your data being exposed publicly, your information. And this is blockchain is a technology that can solve both of these, because you don't have any trusted party that holds this for you, so there's nothing to hack or expose. And then COVID came, and I started trying to see what my next step should be, and that's when I decided to start my own consulting firm, being already many years in crypto, and from my experience in finance, worked for accounting firms and some work in banks. And then I said it's really time to go full time into this industry, try to see what more I can do. So I started a consulting firm. I started advising mainly businesses and helping them to integrate blockchain technology into their flows, and focused a lot on crypto literacy education together with financial education in general. And from there, I met many great people, which now we are the co-founders of Anodos Labs. So yeah, in 2023 we had some. It was actually me and Peter Condilis who basically started Anodos Labs. And the first discussions were, we have been in crypto for so many years. It's all fun and exciting and talking about this new transformative technology, but it's still unusable to the average person. And what's the point if you have this powerful technology and the average person can use it? And we had all this innovation, new models, new things coming out that we never imagined before, and basically it couldn't reach the masses. So because we were too complicated, many different issues with any new technology. So our mission was started as what we can do to actually build better apps, better solutions powered by blockchain, and enable basically everyone to be their own bank in an easy way. So yeah, that's how basically Anodos started.
Very interesting indeed. And I love there's almost the sort of free market sort of spirit in you, in terms of the 2015 capital controls is driving you. You've seen, how bad it can get, but then, you're looking for solutions in the market using technology to be able to, bring and liberate that financial freedom to people. So it's great to see how that's influenced your decisions and what you're doing today. So talk to me about the financial literacy side of things, because I think you hit a very interesting point, right? Because I think people can see blockchain potentially as quite an esoteric concept, not always easily understood, because we've got such use to the banking system and financial system that anything else different is difficult to get their head around. Talk to me about how you go about trying to educate people around this, and are people becoming more receptive as the technology matures? Yeah,
I mean, I would say generally financial literacy is something that unfortunately not many people have. I think the global stats are that 60 to 70% of people don't have a grasp of the main financial concepts, inflation, or how actually fiat money works, how banks or central banks issue money or create new money. So these basic concepts, so that rule basically our lives, are not being understood by most people, because I had, let's say, the privilege to be very good at money since a young age, be able to save, being able to be careful with how I spend. And then I started finance, learned more and more, started getting into investments. But talking with friends, family, and seeing all the people around me, I understood eventually, by talking to them, that they didn't understand most of these concepts. And if especially with the crisis and like seeing all these things happening with banks or like with inflation, and people didn't really understood what's happening. They just took it for granted or just had this hate against governments or banks, but without actually realizing why. So that made me actually want to contribute to that and like try to change, at least starting from the people around me, try to educate them, why this is happening, how the banking system works, all these basic concepts. And this like very important as well to understand crypto and blockchain, because if you don't understand how the world works, then you can't understand any technology, or especially blockchain technology, which has to do with owning your assets, owning your money, your data. So if you can understand that when you deposit money into your bank account, it's actually, you're giving control to your bank. They custody the money for you. And they give you actually an IOU, which means the banks owe you the money. And if the bank, let's say, disappears, then your money is gone. Sure, there's like some insurance of the government, like some things like that, but it's like a different, like it's like a whole new beast about that. But yeah, I mean, you just give up custody of your money, and I think it's this notion that for the last century or more, we have taken for granted, like that we get a job, we get, let's say, the first money, and we start depositing into the bank. So we have the bank as this god where they control our money. It's there to actually keep our money safe, which is actually not the case, from what we have seen all these decades. And that's how like everything started. I wanted like to get people to know more about how the system works and why blockchain is better. And why someone like should have full control of what they do, and without having to trust any bank or any middleman.
Yeah. So do you have any sort of offering digital product or anything that you offer to the market in terms of this financial education?
Well, basically, I mean, I like wrote my first book, but back in 2022.
Yeah.
And this was like one of the main reasons, because I had like, as in 2017, 18, I started like posting my own content, writing blogs on social media. So I grew like a very big audience. So I had many followers, and then I had like many people ask me or like coming to me for advice. And from one point, if you have like tens of messages every day, it like gets a bit of tiring, especially repeating the same answers and
Sure.
and like talking about the same thing. So I said, writing a book right now, like is it's probably the best thing to do, because you can I can say what most of these people are already asking to me every day. I can just put all of this into one book in a simple to understand way.
Yep.
So that's what I did. Like the book is called Understanding the Crypto Economy.
Okay.
But it's more like, as I said, like starting from the very basics of what is money, how the banking system works, how like all these different concepts of investments or bonds or like all these different kinds of works, and then jumping into what blockchain is and how different use cases for businesses, for individuals. So yeah, that's what drove me to like write this book and try to basically if you want any answers, and just take my book or read it, and if you have any other extra questions, I can we can talk about it. But that was like the main idea.
Okay, great. No, sounds like a good thing to have done. So tell us a little about Anodos Labs now. What's going on in your space? Are you developing products? Are you just looking to educate people? What have you got going on?
Well, I would say that education has been like a core part, both like personally, but as a company. We understand that it's very important especially when it comes to a new technology. But for the last 3 years, I mean, we have built like a few products. The most important one right now, it's we have built like focus mainly on the XRP ecosystem, which is like one blockchain network, and we have built the only feature complete decentralized finance platform where basically you can exchange any asset to any assets. You can become a liquidity provider and to like automated market makers, which is a concept of basically like banks do and provide liquidity into certain markets. You can now do for yourself. We also were created the first passkey wallet where you don't need all these, let's say, the crypto wallet complexity, like private keys or having to write down 24 words, and then if you lose it, your money is gone. I mean, we understood that these concepts will not like get mass adopted. I mean, people even like people who are familiar with crypto don't want to deal with all these things and having all this, let's say, responsibility, because I think most people hate having the full responsibility of if something goes wrong, they don't have anyone to go to.
Sure.
I guess that's why most people still prefer banks and like centralized parties. And that this is something that we wanted to change. So that's why we started from within the industry, trying to simplify things step by step. The way they interact with different protocols, the way they buy crypto, the way they create a wallet and a new account. So we simplified all these things. So this have been like our core products. But right now we're moving into the phase, which by the way was like the initial idea, but the timing wasn't right, which was building a global financial super app, which the idea here is to make blockchain completely invisible and focus only on the benefits. For example, the goal is to offer banking services, but without the bank. So you want to have a bank account with your IBAN or like a card, a Visa card. You want to be able to send payments or money to anyone, whether you're a business or individual. You want to make, let's say, invest in stocks or gold 24/7, which is another huge benefit of blockchain, instead of having the restrictions of like banks have from Monday to Friday from like 9 to 5. Now with blockchain, we can enable 24/7 markets, no restrictions.
Yeah.
More efficient, lower like fees. So the goal is how we can give this, let's say, one-stop shop for all your finances without having anyone on top of you to basically control your money or being able to freeze your account.
Yeah.
In case like there's something, quote unquote suspicious. And then they say, for example, I've used even the current like neobanks, I'm not sure if I can mention names, but one of the most like popular neobanks, I've been like using it for years, and like I have my money like frozen 2 times so far.
Right.
It was actually for no reason, just because I transferred like some money from crypto, and it was like flagged as suspicious. But the problem is, even though they then said, we did a mistake, now we can unfreeze your money, but for 3 weeks I couldn't access my money, which is like most of my savings.
Yeah.
And this is like a huge problem, not only from bank accounts, but with cards. You want to do a purchase, and for some reason your bank flags your card or the specific transaction and says, you can't do the transaction, and then you have to call them. It's like all this bureaucracy, which basically you want to eliminate and say, it's time for you like to take responsibility, at least some type of responsibility for your own money, and you can do whatever you want. I mean, that's literally like
that's the ethos that you're trying to put into place. So where are you in that sort of journey in terms of the product? Have you got a product in the market that people could be interested in, and then have you got a roadmap of change that you've got coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, so I mean the DeFi platform I talked about and the like passkey wallet has been live for 2 years now. But right now we have some other like developer tools for, let's say, new developers or engineers that want to come and build on blockchain like in an easier way. So our goal is how we can also improve both the consumer experience but also the developer experience. So we have some of these tools, and now basically we're trying to combine all of these and build this like super app. So this like under development. We're expecting over the next months like to go live. But yeah, the part of this app is like currently under
exciting time. So you're right in the thick of it at the moment then.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Awesome. So tell me a little bit about the organization then. So are you predominantly based in Greece, or are you spread across the world? How's that played out for you?
So I mean, I would say like half of the team is from Greece, and then everyone else like is spread out. Like we have from Canada, we have like from UK, from Ukraine, and like keep expanding. So generally, when I work like remotely, so we're like a global remote team. But ultimately, we want like to maintain the core team, let's say, from Europe or from Greece.
Yeah, nice. So tell me a little bit more about your personal journey then. And what I'm interested in understanding is, and we see this a lot with people we speak on the podcast with, they've started off as an engineer, or in your case, someone really specifically into finance and accounting. And then over the course of their journey, they've had to grow professionally. So understand blockchain, but then now you're CEO and founder of an organization. You've got HR to worry about. You've got marketing, you've got sales, you've got finance, you've got your product roadmap you've got to worry about. You've got, your location strategy you've got to worry about. So what's been the most difficult part of that journey for you? But what's the thing you've enjoyed most about that journey as well?
Well, I would say that I think the most difficult thing is trying to keep up to date with like all these developments, especially like the outside news and what has been happening. Because especially in this industry, I mean, every day there's like something new, like a new innovation that comes out. You have to keep up to it. Then you have to like understand if this is something that you should integrate into your product, or
Yeah,
it's something, let's say, that it's a much better improvement than an existing product. So I think it's mostly about trying to bridge this gap between all this innovation, all these changes, especially now with AI. Like everything is
yeah,
accelerating. You can't keep up with the developments,
mm,
and then the actual like human needs of the users, what they really need, how you can make it simple like for them to use. Because I mean, people don't really want to get into the technicals and understand the background and how the whole technology works. They just want to use it.
sure.
They just want within one tap to be able to do anything. So I would say this one thing, and then the other thing is, as a company, like as we're growing, how we can let's say hire the right people and like find the right people.
Yeah,
I think this has been like another difficult part, because as a core team, I mean, we started all as friends. I mean, we already knew each other, from this industry, having engaged. So we already knew each other, and now trying to grow the team and like hire, let's say, strangers. Many people have come and go because they sometimes they don't fit the culture of the
yeah,
company, or
yeah,
another problem that I generally see nowadays is that many people don't really have the passion about their craft or like what they're doing.
yeah,
And it's understandable. Some people just don't want to do the work, get the money, and leave. They don't care about anything else. But I mean, when you have the passion, it means that you can actually do a better work. You can improve.
yeah,
And we are seeing these things where some people just do want to do, let's say, the minimal work without really caring about anything else. And finding these right people with the right skills and the right, let's say, both soft and hard skills. I think that's the most the key thing here. It's like it's very difficult at the moment.
yeah. It's interesting you touched on culture there. I think when you're building any team or any organization, the cultural fit of people is massively important, right? You could operate a very, you might be a work hard, play hard type organization, and the person comes in as a 9 to 5 and won't do any more than the 9 to 5 type work, and then that just doesn't work, does it? Or equally,
I mean, yeah, it's not just about the hours. I mean, it's like 9 to 5. It's fine. I mean, we like don't require like to overwork yourself. I mean, if like, especially if, let's say, you're not feeling the founder. Although our ethos is to actually make everyone feel like is a founder, like our equity share a piece of them, so everyone basically owns the company and works for it. So the more. But I think the main problem here is that, especially with AI now, most people, or like many people, try to, let's say, this vibe code, or like try to put most of the work to AI. So it's like sloppy work most of the time. It's not
yeah,
about like the hours and what they do. It's like about the quality of the work,
yeah,
which with AI now I think it has dropped a lot. Because for example, you can't just be like act like an engineer with decades of experience, where we just don't
yeah,
even know the fundamentals, and believe that with AI now you can build a new mobile app from scratch without knowing anything.
yeah,
So I think this is like the biggest problem, that many people now not are are not aiming for deep expertise. They
yeah,
just want to know a little bit of everything.
yeah,
But if you do that, I mean, it's fine. But then you can't really be great at something
yeah,
specific.
yeah.
So I think this is like the main issue.
No, interesting. So yeah, just well, you just touched on AI then. How are you, apart from the sort of coding piece, how are you seeing the intersection of blockchain and AI as complementary technologies as part of a solution?
I mean, when it comes like, yeah, to blockchain and AI, I mean, it's like the perfect combination,
Mm,
because from one hand you have blockchain, which is basically technology for decentralized trust.
yep,
So you have all these, let's say, powerful technology where you don't have like any central party, or you don't have any point of a single point of failure. And then you have AI, which the biggest problem so far has been, again, this single point of failure when it comes to data, like what data is sourced, if your data can leak and like can be exposed publicly, and how like this AI model is being fed. And if you like then bring blockchain, you can then actually verify through blockchain how legitimate the data is, where it's coming from, follow the whole process, and you can actually be a more distributed way where, the users can actually decide what, let's say, how the model or they want to improve, instead of having one company like OpenAI, like Google, or whatever company that basically controls the whole data flow, and what this AI model will show to you, what will let's say, hide from you. So having a more, let's say, decentralized way to use AI, I think is like the perfect combination when it comes to that.
Very good. Very good. Excellent. So the question I ask all guests then, Panos, so you're not going to get away without answering this one. So yeah, what one piece of advice would you give your 18-year-old self, which would have stood you in good stead for your journey in business or entrepreneurship thus far?
Well, one advice I would give is, I was listening, just keep going, because to be honest, like, I'm very happy with, who I am today, how I have, let's say, evolved all these years. And, I would just, let's say, reinforce myself to say, double down on what you're doing, on your expertise, focus on this like deep expertise, and, just be the best you can in your craft.
Nice.
Yeah, just keep going. I mean, that's what I would say.
Nice. Very good. Wise words, mate. Wise words. I like that. And yeah, I think that resonates with me, and some of the things that I've been through as well. So yeah, very sage advice indeed. So great. So if listeners want to know a little bit more about yourself, but then also a little bit more about your organization, where do they need to go?
So I mean, yeah, we're like most like available like on X, like Twitter, like is the place to be if you're like in let's say crypto or fintech.
Sure.
I mean, we're like every day there. We have also our own Discord. If you want like to ask any questions, you want like to learn more about us, and of course the website Anodos.finance. We have like everything there. You can learn more about us, and I'm always like also available for anyone that wants to send a message and ask, because I think there's like another, let's say, issue that at least as a company Anodos, like at our ethos and like the way and our culture, is that the more you grow as a company, I mean, the more disconnected you become from, let's say, the real world. You see all these CEOs and all these, let's say, top executives which don't really know what's happening most of the times in their company, or like the small details. But our ethos is like that no matter how much we grow, I mean, we don't want to have all these, let's say, layers of middle management. And, personally, I want to always be accessible, even for an intern or like for anyone that wants to ask a question or like come to me and like discuss anything. So I think this is the general ethos. So, I mean, yeah, you have a question or you have feedback about our products, or you want to see a new feature, you can just, text me directly, and yeah, we can discuss about it.
Great. And one last plug for your book. Is your book available for people to purchase or get a copy of?
Yes. I mean, it's on Amazon, so you can get it like both like a physical or a digital version, and it's there.
Awesome. Very good. So you're accessible on multiple channels. That's good to know.
Yes,
Wonderful. Right. Well, yeah, Panos, it's great to have you on. I'm very excited for you for the future. You've got a lot coming down the track. The product sounds like the vision is set, and you've got a strong team and a strong focus that's going to deliver. And I wish you all the best for your delivery of the vision of that, democratizing our financial system. Right, it's a big lofted ambition, but somebody's got to try and tackle it. So hopefully you're the man. Hopefully you're the man. Great. Well, thanks again for coming on. And guys, if you enjoyed what you heard today, please hit subscribe for more content of this nature. And if you fancy a growth consultancy, as mentioned at the beginning of the call, then drop the word grow into the DMs and we can have a conversation. And until next time, thank you very much.